Hello, how are you? Welcome, welcome.
Hold them more answer. So people, yeah, I'm sure I'm passing along the information. I know.
I did what I think Thomas did. And I promise I don't bite. Thank you. What do you mean? Brilliant.
Nice to meet you.
Is it? Everything okay? All right. Hello. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Welcome. All right. Hello. All right, everybody, we're going to get started in just a few seconds here. Hello. We're getting ready to get started. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Okay. All right. Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here with you today. I can't even tell you because I am among some of the best people that I know, and that is educators. And I don't say that lightly. I do not. You are in Reigniting the Educator, addressing burnout and compassion fatigue in higher learning. All right. So, because we are educators, we have a few objectives. What we're going to be doing today is discussing the differences between teacher burnout and compassion fatigue. I'm pretty sure you are very knowledgeable, fortunately or unfortunately, about burnout. But a lot of times when I'm talking to educators, they are not quite sure what compassion fatigue is. All right, so we'll be talking about that today. Excuse me. Thank you. We're also going to be learning. We're also going to be learning the warning signs of compassion fatigue, and I'm going to give you a self-assessment. I don't know if we're going to have enough time today for you to complete that self-assessment in this session, but you can always take that home when you have some more time, take it on your own time and really look at where you are. Now, I know you can say, I already know, I'm burned out. Or I was burned out at the end of last semester, or however the case may be. What this does, it specifically pinpoints whether it's burnout or compassion fatigue, all right? And then the last thing that we're going to be doing is using magic to combat compassion fatigue and increase overall mental wellness. Now, of course, MAGIC is an acronym, so we're going to be learning what that 5-step process is. All right, so these are our agreements today. And if you don't mind, I'm going to switch to this. Testing. Okay, so these are our agreements today. This is a brave space. So at times I may be asking you to share what you know, share what feels comfortable, You don't have to share your life story. We only have about maybe 45 minutes, 45, 50 minutes. But if there's something that you want to share about the topic, by all means, please do. Lean in. Curiosity always enriches learning. We always encourage our students to lean in, but sometimes as educators, we can be a little bit hesitant and resistant to that. Be mindful of our words. Our stories and our words have an impact on others. They do. And so as we are sharing, being mindful of that. And then to honor your needs. We're only here for a very short amount of time, but please check in with yourself. And if you need to take a bio break or you feel the need to step out for a second, by all means, take care of you, okay? All right, so I am LaShante Aeysis Clay, and I've developed programming and curriculum for the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. When I was there, it was called the Maryland Department of Juvenile Justice, and many school systems across the United States, as well as a lot of theater companies and theater programs. I developed curriculum for them. I'm also a certified mindfulness and social and emotional wellness coach through the program Breathe for Change. How many people have heard of Breathe for Change? Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. The program specifically zones in on teacher and educator wellness. The whole thought process is that if we're not well, there's no way that we're going to be able to help our students get well and learn. My focus is on social and emotional wellness and trauma-informed practices in educational settings, whether that is K-12, whether that is higher learning, and it's for students and teachers. I must tell you, I lean heavily on the teacher aspect of it because, like I just said, if we're not okay, our students aren't okay, and our classrooms are not okay. I will say this, if you haven't got a handout, there are handouts at the door in the corners on the chairs, you might want to grab one. And I'm also a professional actress, director, and playwright. All right, so this video here is of a solo show that I wrote. I know it looks a little funny. I caught the most animated portions of the solo show, but it's called Sculpting Clay, or How I Became Mother of Unicorns. I was a teacher in the classroom for over 17 years. Like I said, I first started with the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. And when I first went into education, was from necessity. It was not because I was altruistic and said, I want to be an educator. That is what I want to do with my life. I wanted to be an actress. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to go to New York and live the New York life and be a star. And then a man came along. And I got married. And I had 2 kids. And we moved to Maryland from North Carolina instead of New York because he was very adamant about not raising kids in Manhattan. So I needed a job. And I had a degree. And the Maryland Department of Juvenile Justice was looking for a teacher. And so that started my journey. And I realized that I loved it. I fell in love with the connection. I had 0 pedagogy to my name, but I knew how to connect. And that started the journey. However, because I started teaching in a place where trauma ran rampant, can you imagine? These young people were in Cheltenham. I don't know how many people know what Cheltenham is. Cheltenham boys facility or youth facility. It's in Cheltenham, Maryland, and it is where most young people are sent, most young men, young boys are sent when they commit a crime. Okay. And so they go and they stay for 5 days, 5 months, unfortunately, over a year. I had students who would stay in this system for over a year because they didn't have any place to go after. And so hearing these young men's stories and hearing the things that they had done and hearing where they came from and trying to mentor them through that without the support of how to do that without bringing on that trauma, that started problems. Unfortunately, I lost two students that I know of through street violence, and I had to leave because of that. My heart said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't be a teacher, but I still needed a job. So I went to Suitland High School Center for the Visual and Performing Arts, which is right up the street. I called myself going from the worst of education to the best of education. These children wanted to learn about theater. These children wanted to be actors and actresses and directors and designers. However, as we all know, there was still trauma. There's still trauma. And I unfortunately lost more students without the support of what to do with that, what to do with that grief, what to do when a young person comes and tells you all of the traumas that they're dealing with. And you are that person. You are that person that's created a safe space. So I ended up coming out of the classroom in 2018 and thought that was it with education. I'm done. I'm done. No more curriculum writing. I'm done. I said I was going to be an actress, and that's what I'm going to do. But once a teacher, always a teacher. I was out for maybe 3 months when I realized that this story needed to be written, and that not only could I share the story, but this solo show is now a part of a professional development very similar to this. And it goes all across the country to K-12 normally, but also to some higher learning institutions, helping other teachers stay in the classroom, helping other educators stay on fire. So moving into what we're going to be talking about today. This is what I call the trifecta of challenges to educator well-being. This is the trifecta. All right. So we have burnout, primary traumatic events, and compassion fatigue and secondary traumatic stress. We'll be talking about that in a second. First and foremost, burnout, the thing that we are most familiar with. I'm going to pause really quickly. You have a handout in front of you, and it has lots of goodies, lots of places for you to write should you choose to do so. There's also a QR code that we're going to be referring to in a little bit, but there's lots of places. You'll notice at the very top, it says, what did I just see, or something about a play? Yeah, so this is if you would have seen the play before this. Okay, just so FYI. But burnout, we are all familiar with burnout, right? How many people, and you don't have to answer this, but if you feel bold enough and brave enough to answer, how many people are suffering with burnout right now? Okay. How many people have suffered from burnout? Okay. All right. It's unfortunately an occupational hazard in education right now. A lot of the reason is because we are teaching in a system that's not quite fixed. It's kind of broken in a lot of places, and we're trying to fix it as we go forward. But when we're working inside of a broken system, 9 times out of 10, we're going to experience burnout. So it's work-related hopelessness and feelings of inefficacy. It can lead to physical and emotional exhaustion, cynicism, frequent absenteeism, chronic tardiness, underperformance. It's really important to know that it can affect any teacher, regardless of how experienced you are or how passionate you are about your job. Although I did not come into education on the traditional path, I loved my job. I loved teaching theater. Can you imagine every day getting to come into a classroom and share that thing that you love to young people who are hungry to learn it? That's like the most awesome job ever, right? But burnout was something that I I suffered from, and as we saw in the space, others have suffered from as well. Let's talk about primary traumatic events. These are things that happen to you, things that you experience or witness or are confronted with. These are your traumas, for lack of a better word. So violence committed against the teacher, witnessed by the teacher, maybe even personal experiences or losses with COVID-19. These can all be primary traumatic events. Now, I want to pause right here and talk about something that's happening that I know of that's happening in K-12. There seems to be an uptick in violent behavior in students. I don't know if you are experiencing the same things here. Let me know. Have you seen anything on that? Good. But in K-12, we're starting to see a rise in violent behavior. And that can be violent outbursts, throwing a chair, slamming a door, not necessarily violent against the teacher, although we know that's happening too. So these are all primary traumatic events. And then we have secondary trauma, which is tied to compassion fatigue. You may even have heard of the term vicarious trauma. How many, as a show of hands, how many people have ever heard of compassion fatigue? Okay, what about secondary trauma? Okay. So compassion fatigue is the emotional remains or strain of exposure to working with someone who has experienced trauma. So what that means, you have a student who comes in and says, I'm experiencing homelessness, and I have a child and we are experiencing homelessness, and I'm having trouble getting your work in or completing your assignments. Okay, that person is experiencing a trauma. Depending on your background, depending on your level of empathy at the time, and depending on how many students are coming to you with traumas, there is a large probability that you can vicariously take on some of this trauma. When you're trying to mentor them, you're trying to help them through this, you're trying to get them, you know that this person wants to go on to be a doctor or go on to be an actress or anything, and you want to help them. And so you're invested in helping them. You're invested in helping them through this trauma, which is a good thing. But we have to arm ourselves against compassion fatigue. All right, again, it is indirect trauma, indirect. So this is not necessarily something that you have experienced. If you have experienced, then your chances of getting it triple. Right? It's PTSD-like symptoms without having been involved in the event. Let me give you an example. I am from Ahoskie, North Carolina. It is a very teeny, tiny town in North Carolina. We got one Walmart and a Piggly Wiggly. All right? So you can imagine the kind of things that a person from a rural area would, a teenager would get into. I had no clue what it felt like to have to deal with a mother who was dealing with drug abuse and a younger sibling who I had to get to school on time. And I had to, figure out the city bus and try to get them to school and me to school, them fed, me fed, and kind of shield my younger sibling from what was happening with my parent. I don't know what that's like. But unfortunately, I've had students who that was their normal. And unfortunately, in this area, honestly, in this day and age, the probability of you having students who have some sort of trauma around that gets a little high. All right. So that PTSD-like symptoms, I was never involved in it, but every night when I was teaching, when the evening news came on, I would start to not hyperventilate, but my breathing would start to get a little faster. And my chest would get a little tighter because what I thought I was going to see was that one of my students had passed or one of my students had committed a crime. And so I'm like, I don't want to look at the news. I don't want to look at the news. I don't want to look at the news. And so I avoided the news. Okay. Again, compassion fatigue. And in some cases, secondary traumatic stress or compassion fatigue can impede professional functioning and diminish the educator's life. I want to talk a little bit about this continuum of compassion fatigue. All right, let's think of compassion fatigue like a continuum. Secondary traumatic stress or secondary trauma is that absorbing of that trauma, what we've been talking about. Compassion fatigue can be on a continuum. You can be on this end of the continuum where you just absorb all of it. You absorb all of it and you don't have any place to put it. You're like worried all the time and you're starting to stress and you become over consumed with thoughts of, oh my God, did they eat tonight? I don't know. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's happening. This is where I was. And then you have this side of the continuum, which I call the wall. When you hit a wall and your level of empathy goes to 0, you don't care anymore. I don't care. Just come to my class, do my work, and kick rocks. Come, do it, and keep moving. I'm only here to give you this information. Whether you get it or not, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you have a trauma going on. I don't care. Okay? How many people have come across colleagues or maybe even themselves who were in this hyper empathetic state like I was, where I just absorbed. How many people have colleagues or even themselves that have hit the wall? And there's no shame on either side, that have hit the wall. If you know a colleague or yourself that have hit a wall, no shame. Both sides are, we don't want to be. We don't want to be on either side of this continuum. We want to keep our empathy, but also be able to care for ourselves so we don't fall down the well. All right, so that is again, what I call the trifecta of the challenges to educator well-being right now. Burnout, primary traumatic events, and compassion fatigue. All right, I'm going to leave this here for a minute. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but on this side, you have the signs of compassion fatigue, which include things like reduced sense of efficacy at work, meaning I don't think that I am a good teacher anymore. I don't think I can do this well anymore. Exhaustion, maybe even isolation and withdrawal from colleagues, maybe even in your personal life. Okay. Jaded, bitter pessimism. I know I can close my eyes right now and see the actual colleague who was the most jaded, bitter person. And it was because he had hit a wall. He had hit that wall. Now, these are the risk factors for compassion fatigue. Being new to the field. How many people, this is your first year as an educator? All right. You remember that first year? When you came in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. You were so excited to get your classroom. You were so excited to meet your students and to be that person, right? When we are that open, sometimes we can blur that line between student and teacher and between their trauma and my trauma. Having a history of personal trauma or burnout, we talked about that. If you have a history of personal trauma, your risk factor increases greatly. Working long hours, juggling several learning environments. Maybe if you are teaching at different colleges or universities and you have different sets of students, or maybe you have a large workload at one university, that can also lead to compassion fatigue. And then having inadequate support systems. All right. I'm gonna let you read this. I'm not gonna read it to you. As I'm looking around, I'm seeing nodding heads like, yeah, yeah, yeah. That last line is what really hit me when I was researching this. That's what really hit me. That if they perceive that their lifelong caring is not being reciprocated by their leadership. I've noticed that teachers have a large amount of compassion for the most part, but it's when we are not giving that support system that it becomes a little bit too much, a little bit too much. All right. So the ProQual test, which is the professional quality of life test. This is that test that I was telling you about earlier in the presentation. If you look at your handout there on the very first page, there's this round QR code that says Google full of goodies or something like that. Take your phone out. And if you don't want to do it now, that's fine. I'm just going to walk you through the process. And if you are watching this on Zoom, you can use your phone and zap this QR code right now. Okay. So you're going to go like you're taking a picture, but you are not going to take a picture. What should come up is something, it says like flowcode.com. And again, if you are in the room, it might be easier to take it from the actual handout versus here. I don't know, you might be able to grab it from here. All right, what comes up is a Google Drive that says UT Resources PD1. If you are there with me, say yes. Awesome. Okay, in this Google full of goodies, or some goodies, but there's something that says ProQual test. Click on that and just click on it. Don't do anything else. All right, now, what you want to do is you have to make a copy for yourself. All right, because if not, then everybody's adding to the same document and it's not going to work. You want your own document. So the way to do that is hit the top 3 dots on the top right-hand corner. It's going to drop down a menu. Click share and export. And then you're going to just make a copy. And then it's all yours. Okay. Yes. All right. So. Okay, so if you don't have the Sheets app on your phone, which is probably the case for most people, when you get to your computer, that's probably the better way to do that. And I can send you the link. I'll be able to send you the link. Okay, so if you aren't able to access it, I can send you the link. The major point is you want to make sure to make a copy. Again, this Excel this Excel sheet has a series of questions for you to answer, and you answer from 1 to 5. 1 being, oh, it's so horrible. 5 being, it's the most amazing thing in the world. Okay, and the instructions are there. It's very easy. And you answer all of those, and it computes your answers on the side. What your compassion satisfaction score is, meaning how satisfied are you with your job? If you have a high score, you're rocking. Okay. Then it's compassion fatigue, and it tells you that. And then it also tells your burnout score. Okay. All right. And again, for time's sake, we're going to move on. But if you have any questions at all, at the end, I'll have a way for you to get in contact with me and I can just walk you through it. Super simple. I like to encourage educators to take it twice a year, at least twice a year, at the very beginning of the school year and around about the end of January, beginning of February. That's for K-12. For higher learning, it might be a good idea to take it at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester, just to kind of see where you are. Again, you can tell whether you're burnt out or tired but really want to zone in on whether is it burnout, which is kind of outside of my control because it's systemic, or is it compassion fatigue and I can adjust? Okay. All right. Let's move forward. Also in that Google of goodies, there's 3 folders: awareness, balance, and connection. All right. According to the American Institute of Stress, the ABCs can help manage and prevent compassion fatigue. All right. And those ABCs are awareness, balance, and connection. In those folders are just some resources for that. So if awareness, balance, and connection are the keys, then magic. Magic then is the vehicle to managing compassion fatigue and burnout. And I laugh because on Keynote, on my Mac Keynote presentation, there's this like magical transition, but you know, Windows. Can you tell I'm a Mac girl? All right, so let's talk about magic. The M stands for mindfulness, mindfulness. Now, a lot of times when I talk about mindfulness, people tend to think that it's connected to a religious practice or that it takes time that you already do not have. But mindfulness is simply the act of being present. That is it. How many people in any given day, their mind is on a hamster wheel? You got lesson plans, you have dinner, you have home things that you have to worry about. Did you fill the tank up with gas before you get here? Are you gonna run out of gas? All like your mind is on a hamster wheel. Mindfulness is the stopping of that. So again, people are like, well, I don't have time for mindfulness. So here are some 1-minute mindfulness things to that you can do. Yawn and stretch for every 10 seconds every hour. Good job. Look at you. She yawned. Yawn and stretch for 10 seconds every hour. Make yourself yawn. This is one of the things that we do in theater games. Dropping the jaw, yawning, relaxing our shoulders. 10 seconds every hour. Put a timer on, have at it. You can also include this in your class practices. All of these you can include in your class practices. Fully committing to a sense. We're going to try this really quickly. All right. So you can either close your eyes or take your gaze down to the floor. If you are looking on Zoom, by all means, again, you can close your eyes. And I want you to concentrate on the smallest thing that you can hear. Focusing solely on sound. All right, that was about 10 seconds. All right, what did you hear? Yeah. Your breath. The vent, yeah. People talking. Cool, that was 10 seconds. How did that feel? Relaxing? Again, it was only 10 seconds, but it stopped that hamster wheel. You force yourself to focus on a sense. All right. If you are getting overwhelmed after a class, during a class, at the light, as you're driving, wherever, 10 seconds can help you. It's not going to solve the problem, obviously, but imagine if you spent 1 minute. You got to work up to it. I promise you. 1 minute, and you're going to be thinking, this is crazy. Around 20 seconds, why am I doing this? And then you're going to start the hamster wheel back up. But you can train yourself to doing that. Hug and breathe. This is a favorite of mine. I am a hugger. And so hug, like at the end of a very stressful day, hugging my son, hugging my husband, hugging my daughter, and just breathing for 1 minute. Can you imagine for someone who hugs how amazingly recharging that is? If you are a hugger, try it. If you're not, there are other ones. Mindful snacking. All right. So we're running from one class to the next. We're running from one thing to the next, and we are like shoving things in our mouths because we got to eat, but we're not paying attention. If we take 1 minute, just 1 minute of that to actually taste it, to feel the texture of it. Again, this is mindfulness. People think it's, again, a religious practice. And for some, it can be, but it's really about being present. Clenching and breathing, clenching your hands really, really tight. Everything in your body, clench, clench, clench. And then letting it all go. Again, for 1 minute. These are things that when you're in that 1 minute, it seems like forever, but you have 1 minute in your day for you. I promise you have 1 minute. And then there's mindful breathing, which is square breathing or 4-7-8 breathing. Mindful breathing is done by a lot of first responders. They introduced it to the military. Square breathing is where you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, rest for 4, and you continue this process for as long as you need in order to bring your symptoms down and bring your heart rate down. 4-7-8 breathing is something that I do almost all the time. I'm going to be honest. 4-7-8 breathing, you breathe in on 4, you hold for 7, and you breathe out on 8. Now, what that does is it tricks your body and tricks your mind into not being in fight or flight syndrome. Okay. A lot of times I have trouble sleeping. This helps. So if you have trouble sleeping, 4-7-8 breathing. Now it's not like one time and you go to sleep. That's not how it works. If you do it for about a minute or 2, you're going to start nodding off. Your body's going to start thinking, oh, okay. And it's going to start relaxing. Okay. All right. The next one is authentic connections. Let me check my time. Awesome. Authentic connections. The wonderful Brene Brown. How many people read Brene Brown's? She's so amazing. She's so awesome. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Letting go of this thought process that we have to be a certain type of educator or a certain type of person, certain type of human, and just embracing who we are. It's amazing how that can help with compassion fatigue. Because what happens is we're so overly consumed with someone else's trauma. When we take a second and being that person for this person, when we take a second and just sit in who we are and how we're feeling, a lot of times we'll start to notice, wait a minute, this right here is sucking me in, and I can be there for them, and I can give them the things that they need and give them, help without being sucked in to their trauma. The next one is guarding yourself against your work defining you. How many people agree with this? No shame. Okay. Teaching isn't just what I do, it's who I am. It's who I am. All right. When I first started presenting this and showing this quote, the majority of teachers in the room would raise their hands. They had tied their identity, who they are, so tightly into education and what they teach that this was true for them. Which brings up a topic that I'm sure you've heard come up about teachers are superheroes. right? No, 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 no. Teachers are not superheroes. I am going to encourage you to not, that's my little thing, there it is, to not subscribe to this. And I challenge that idea that teachers are superheroes. You're not the hero. I mean, you are a hero, but you're not a superhero. There's an element of self-sacrifice that happens with superheroes, right? So how many superhero fans do I have in this space? Like superhero movies? Marvel or Marvel? Okay, all right, good. All right, just making sure. Fair, that's fair, that's fair. Okay, so when we think, let's just say Superman. I mean, that's everybody knows Superman, right? Everybody knows what Superman is. When we say Superman, Superman does not have a day off, nor is he expected to say, I don't want to run into that burning building. You know, like, or, I mean, the burning building won't hurt him. So Superman is kryptonite, right? If there were 50 humans in a room full of kryptonite and they were being tortured, would Superman say, I can't go in there? No, he's Superman. He knows that it's going to hurt him, but he's going to go in anyway. He knows that, you know, something horrible is going to happen. He's going to run in anyway. That is what society has expected of educators. Is that regardless of whether I have children at home and a wife and a husband and a partner, whether I have a cat at home that I need to go home to, and it's just me and my cat, I have to give everything for the students in my classroom. No, it is a dangerous line to walk when you consider the amount of teachers who are struggling with burnout and compassion fatigue. It breeds a silencing effect because you can't be effective at this very human job if you aren't allowed to be human. You can't be effective. When you can't. When you're supposed to be a super person, you can't do this human job. All right. All right, intentional and preventive self-care. Now, I will say this. When I first started doing this professional development, I would say self-care, and you would hear this almost imperceptible groan that would happen. It's like, oh my God, here we go again with the self-care. Do you remember, like, was it at the beginning of the pandemic, or maybe it was when we first started coming back to class? Everybody said, teachers, make sure that you are doing your self-care. Yes, and that's gonna fix it. And teachers started getting very like, you know what, if I hear that one more time, it's gonna be a problem. However, it's true. It's true. There are things that you can and should do. Yes, can and should do to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. One of these things is check to see if you are absorbing any additional trauma through television, the internet, or the news. We have the power to shut that off. Okay? We have the power to shut that off. And the three things that you can, well, there are three things that you can do to help on your self-care journey. Spending quality time alone, learning to say no, and creating small, repeatable wellness routines. In your handout, there is a kind of spiderweb graphic thingy. I don't know if did I do the graphic thingy, or maybe it's just listed out. Yeah, I did. Spiderweb graph. All right, there are 6 types of self-care. 6 types. We're gonna go through those super quick. Yeah. We're gonna go through those really quickly. What I would love for you to do is to think about ways that you can care for yourself, small, repeatable wellness things that you can do for yourself with at least 3 of these types of self-care. All right. As we all know, self-care is not just about bubble baths and mani-pedis, or that's not it. All right. First one is practical, cleaning off your desk, taking professional development classes that you want to take. That's important. Organizing your closet. Clutter tends to add stress. All right. So if there's something right now that you can close your eyes, maybe even closing your eyes, you can say, I need to handle that. That's something that you can write down. Something, if there's something cluttered right now that you're like, you know what? If I clean that up, that would help. Physical, taking a walk between classes during lunch breaks. You have a beautiful campus here. Maybe you don't walk the whole thing. Maybe you just walk for like 5 minutes if you have time. Sleeping 8 hours a day. Ooh, that's a biggie. Oh, you can't sleep 8 hours a day. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. 2-year-olds are like, no, they are allergic to sleep. But staying hydrated, you can do. Staying hydrated. And again, these are things that we know, but if we schedule them in our day, and if we take like 3 of these things out of the whole wheel, you'll start to feel a whole lot better. All right. Mental, these are things you can do mentally. And all of these are just suggestions. These are, I'm sure you have lots of other things that you can do. Social, making sure that you are not isolating yourself. We unfortunately had to go through that whole period of isolation. Now that we are back to a degree, making sure that we are catering to our very human need for interaction. Even if you are introverted like my husband, maybe instead of the whole hour, maybe it's just the 5 minutes and you're good. But making that time. Spiritual, whether you join a religious practice or not, it can be meditation, it can be going to a place of worship, it can be spending time in nature. I tell everyone, I am a Christian, but the closest I've ever felt to God is in nature. Dedicate time for self-reflection, which is a good one. And emotional, you'll notice at the very bottom, creating art is highlighted. Why do you think that is? Because I'm an artist. But no, creating art can be a very emotional self-care practice. And the last one is creative reflection. Now, good. All right. Did you know that creativity is known to do? This is oh, you can't see, I didn't put the where that's from. But it has been proven, scientifically proven, that creativity can do all of these things. Does that mean that you have to be an artist to delve into creativity? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What are some hobbies that you like to do? Toss them out. Just toss them out. Anybody? Sewing, reading. Hula hooping. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. Anybody else? I said music. Playing or listening? Both. Nice. Okay. I'm going to ask this question. How many people, when you were younger, liked to draw when you were younger? Okay. How many people liked to sing when you were younger? Not saying that you don't necessarily do now, but when you were younger. Dance. Okay. All right. Were you in the band? I was a band geek. Yeah. Okay. All right. One of the things that I've noticed is as we get older, there's this line, this invisible line that we cross, a lot of people, not everyone, where those things that we used to love become child's play. and we don't make time for them anymore. I used to love chalk sidewalk art. Sidewalk art. I used to love that. I loved it. And then somewhere around, I don't know, somewhere in my 20s, I was like, I'm not doing that. That's for kids. That's for kids. And my 30th birthday at midnight, my husband bought me some chalk. And for 3 hours, we sat outside our house and just drew on the ground. And it was the most relaxing thing that I had experienced in a long time. So I encourage you, whatever that thing was, try to pick it up a little bit again. See if it has that same power, magical power to release stress. All right. So this creative reflection, and I'm going to give you a second to write this because I actually do want you to write this here as you're thinking about it. Creative reflection as, well, reflection as educators. We're asked all the time to reflect on our practices, right? Reflect on our teaching practices and the things that we do in our classroom. But very rarely do we use that time or set aside time to reflect on our journeys. We reflect on our scores that our students have done, maybe our lessons, did they work, or do they need to be tweaked, or any of that stuff, but your actual journey as an educator. No one in this room is a first-year teacher. So you have this kind of story that you've created and that you're still creating. I want you to think about the thing that you are most proud of as an educator. What is that thing? And we're not going to share this, so don't think that you have to be altruistic or any of that. I help young people. Yeah, we all do. Yeah. But what is that one thing that you are proud of yourself? And when you think about it, just jot it down on that little, either on the sheet, or if you got a piece of paper, or maybe got a phone or something. I want you to hold on to this. And the reason why I want you to hold on to this is because, y'all, we do a very difficult job. We do. Some days are amazing. Some days are crap. And on those crappy days, we need to be reminded. We need to be reminded, not just of remember your why, that too, but what are you proud of? How have you made yourself proud as an educator in your journey? What names pop up that's associated with it? Is there a lesson maybe that pops up? I don't know. But on those days when it gets tough, come back to that. Come back to that. Now, I am a huge fan of Choose Your Own Adventure books. Well, I was, they don't make them anymore. But I don't know if you remember Choose Your Own Adventure books. They were the best, the best. So this is Choose Your Own Quest, should you choose to do that. This can also help you on those times, will help you heal from compassion fatigue. It can also help you on those days that are just a little too dark. So write down everything you can remember about an event or experience. Just one. So for example, I may write everything that I can remember about opening night for In the Heights, when we did In the Heights at Suitland. Okay, that was that's one of the things that's on my list of, I call it my list of dopeness. And it's like how I'm dope and how other people have been dope around me. And so there's that. So I would write down everything I could remember about that opening night. Names, if I could remember what they wore, sounds, smells, all that stuff. Okay. To put me back into that wonderful place. You can write a poem if you are a poet and didn't know it. You can write a poem about the event or experience. Or one of my favorites is you can write a letter to someone who was instrumental in that moment. And whether you send it to them or not, it doesn't even matter. It's that act of gratitude. It's that act of getting it down, of expressing it, that actually helps you feel better. So, all right. Our objectives today was to discuss the differences between teacher burnout and compassion fatigue, learn the warning signs of compassion fatigue, and conduct a self-assessment. We didn't get a chance to do the self-assessment, but you have it. And then use the magic formula to combat compassion fatigue and increase overall mental wellness. All right, I am Aeysis Clay. My company is Sculpted Clay Productions. And again, I go around to educational environments, and whether that is K-12 schools, higher learning, and I help their educators really cope, whether it's individually or in a group like this, cope with the challenges of education through creativity. All right. If you would like to stay connected, that is another QR code. I think you actually have to do this one on this. I don't think I put it on that one. Or you can take down that website. It sends you to the same exact place. Same exact place. All right. And in closing, there is a wonderful evaluation that PGCC has for you. Please make sure you fill it out. I would love to hear what your takeaways were from our time together. And if you would like to stay connected, by all means, before you leave, you can come up, and we can connect. I have a writing group for educators called Write to Create, where you work on writing your own mini memoir, kind of like I did as a means of healing. So with that, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here, and have an excellent semester. All right. Absolutely. There it is. Yes. Woo. Yes. Would love to see you. Love to see you. Yep. This shit is some music playing or something. Does anybody need the last slide with the, oops, that one? Oh. Yeah.
Yes. And it's one thing. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.